There is a figure sitting alone among flowers. His body is powerful, muscular, tense, but his posture tells a different story. He slumps forward. His hands are clasped together. His eyes stare into the distance with an expression that is impossible to define. Is it sadness? Longing? Despair? This is The Demon Seated, painted by Russian artist Mikhail Vrubel in 1890. And this painting would haunt Vrubel for the rest of his life. Not because critics hated it, though many did. Not because it was controversial, though it certainly was. But because Vrubel could not let it go. He returned to this demon again and again, repainting him, obsessing over him, until the line between the artist and his creation blurred completely. And in the end, the demon destroyed him. To understand this painting, you need to understand the story behind it. Between 1829 and 1839, Russian poet Mikhail Lermontov wrote a long narrative poem called The Demon. It was considered a masterpiece of European romantic poetry, but it was also dangerous. The Russian censors banned it for decades because of its subject matter. The poem tells the story of a fallen angel wandering the Caucasus Mountains. He is immortal. He has unlimited power, but none of it matters. He is completely alone, trapped in infinite isolation, unable to feel anything, until he sees Tamara. She is a Georgian princess, young and beautiful, dancing at her wedding celebration. And for the first time in eternity, the demon feels something stir inside him, not just desire, hope. So he destroys her. He kills her husband-to-be, arranges for robbers to attack the wedding caravan, and leaves Tamara devastated and alone. Then he goes to her. He whispers to her at night. He tells her he loves her. He promises to give up his immortality if she will accept him. And Tamara, seeing not a demon, but a tortured soul, yields to him. They kiss, and she dies instantly, because his kiss is poison. The poem ends with the demon wandering the earth again, alone, abandoned, without love or hope. Lermontov wrote 6 major versions of this poem over 10 years. He died in 1841 at age 26 in a duel, and the poem was not published in Russia until 1856, 15 years after his death, but it was already famous. Handwritten copies circulated through Moscow and St. Petersburg. Artists read it. Musicians composed operas based on it. And in 1885, a young painter named Mikhail Vrubel decided to illustrate it. Mikhail Vrubel was born in 1856 in Omsk, Siberia. His mother died when he was 3. His father was a military lawyer who moved the family constantly across Russia. Vrubel studied law at St. Petersburg University and graduated in 1880. But instead of becoming a lawyer, he entered the Imperial Academy of Arts at age 24. He was brilliant. His technique was unlike anyone else's. He painted with a palette knife instead of brushes, creating surfaces that looked like stained glass or mosaics, crystalline, fragmented, each stroke a faceted shard of color. In the 1880s, he worked on Byzantine church murals in Kiev. He traveled to Venice and studied early Christian art. The solemn, haunting faces of those ancient icons stayed with him, but the Academy did not know what to do with him. His work was too strange, too dark, too different. Critics dismissed him. Exhibitions rejected his paintings. And then, in 1885, he began illustrating Lermontov's The Demon. He became obsessed. This was the subject he had been searching for. A figure who was powerful but powerless, beautiful but cursed, immortal but dead inside. In 1889, Vrubel moved to Moscow. He met Sava Mamontov, a wealthy industrialist and patron of the arts who saw genius in his work. Mamontov gave Vrubel studio space, commissioned paintings, and believed in him when almost no one else did. And in 1890, Vrubel began his first large canvas, The Demon Seated. Look at what Vrubel created. The demon sits alone on a mountaintop. Behind him, the sky burns with a scarlet sunset. In front of him, flowers bloom in impossible profusion, their petals almost as large as he is, pressing in on him from all sides. The painting is horizontal, which makes the demon appear cramped, compressed between the top and bottom edges of the frame. There is no space for him, no room to move. His body is powerful. You can see the tension in his muscles, the strength in his arms and shoulders. His hands are interlocked, fingers gripping each other as if trying to hold something together that is falling apart. But his posture contradicts all that strength. He slumps forward, his head bows. His expression is one of profound sadness. Vrubel described him in a letter to his sister, a winged, young, sadly thoughtful figure who sits embracing her knees against the sunset and looks at a flowering clearing. Wait, her knees? Vrubel referred to the demon as female, even though the figure appears masculine. He later said the demon was a spirit which unites in itself the male and female, a spirit which is not so much evil as suffering and wounded, but withal a powerful and noble being. This is not the devil. This is not a monster. This is something more complex. And then there is Vrubel's technique. Those flowers, that sky, the demon's skin. Everything is painted in facets, like broken glass or gemstones. Vrubel used a palette knife to create hard, angular strokes. The effect is startling. The painting looks like a stained glass window, like a Byzantine mosaic come to life. He also mixed bronze powder into his paint to make the surface shimmer and glow. Unfortunately, over time, the bronze has oxidized and darkened, so the painting no longer looks as luminous as it once did. But you can still see what he was trying to achieve. A world that is beautiful but cold, alive but sterile, crystalline and lifeless. And at the center of it all, this figure, powerful on the outside, broken on the inside. When The Demon Seated was first exhibited in 1890, the reaction was intense. Some critics were horrified. They called it hideous, ugly, disturbing. One reviewer accused Vrubel of achieving nothing but wild ugliness, but others saw something different. Sava Mamontov called it fascinating symphonies of a genius. He commissioned Vrubel to paint decorations for his private opera house and the mansions of his friends. The painting became famous. Controversial, yes, but impossible to ignore. And for Vrubel, it was just the beginning, the obsession. Vrubel could not stop painting demons. In 1896, he married Nadezhda Zabala, a famous opera singer. She became his muse, his model, his constant companion. He designed stage sets and costumes for her performances in Rimsky-Korsakov's operas. For a while, his work flourished. He painted The Swan Princess in 1900, one of his most beautiful and serene works. He was finally gaining recognition, but the demon was still there, waiting. In 1901, Vrubel began work on The Demon Downcast. This was not the melancholy, thoughtful demon of 1890. This was a demon utterly destroyed, broken, cast down among jagged rocks, his wings shattered, his face twisted in agony. Vrubel painted the face over and over. Even after the painting was exhibited at the World of Art exhibition in 1902, he kept going back to it, repainting the demon's face every single day. Each day it looked different. Each day it became more tormented. He could not stop. And then he broke. In 1902, Vrubel had a severe nervous breakdown. He was hospitalized in a mental clinic. His diagnosis was never entirely clear. Some said manic depression, but it is now known that he had contracted syphilis around 1885, and the disease had progressed to its final stage, affecting his brain. He continued to paint in the clinic. Mystical subjects, biblical prophets, a haunting painting called Pearl Oyster in 1904. But his vision was failing. By 1906, he was completely blind. For the last 4 years of his life, Vrubel lived in darkness. His sister and his wife would visit him, read to him, sing to him, but he could no longer paint. He could no longer see. In the winter of 1910, Vrubel deliberately stood in front of an open window and caught a cold. On April 14, 1910, he died of pneumonia. He was 54 years old. At his funeral, the great symbolist poet Alexander Blok eulogized him, calling him one of the true creators of beauty, who enriched the world despite unbearable personal torment. So what was Vrubel trying to say with this demon? He once explained, "The demon is not so much an evil spirit as it is suffering and sorrowful, but at the same time domineering and stately. This is not a painting about evil. It is a painting about loneliness, about having all the power in the world and still feeling helpless, about being immortal and wishing you could die." The demon in this painting represents something universal, the emptiness that comes from isolation, the despair of being unable to connect, the prison of your own mind, and Vrubel knew that prison intimately. There is a theory among art historians that Vrubel saw himself in the demon, that as his mental illness progressed, the line between artist and subject dissolved. The demon became a self-portrait, a way of expressing suffering that could not be put into words. When you look at The Demon Seated, you are looking at a figure who is trapped, not by chains or walls, but by his own nature. He cannot change. He cannot escape. He can only sit among the flowers and stare into the distance, longing for something he will never have. And that, perhaps, is why this painting is so powerful. Because we recognize it. We have all felt trapped by circumstances we cannot control. We have all experienced the contradiction of being strong on the outside while collapsing on the inside. Vrubel painted that feeling, and then he lived it. The Demon Seated is now in the State Tretyakov Gallery in Moscow. It is considered one of the masterpieces of Russian symbolism, and one of Vrubel's most important works. But its influence goes beyond museums. The painting captured something about the late 19th century, about the anxiety and spiritual crisis of that era, about what happens when traditional beliefs crumble and you are left alone with your own consciousness. The Russian symbolist movement that Vrubel helped create influenced an entire generation of artists, and his technique, that crystalline, mosaic-like style, opened new possibilities for how paint could be applied to canvas. But more than technique or influence, what remains is the image itself, a demon sitting alone among flowers, powerful but helpless, immortal but longing for death, beautiful but cursed. Vrubel spent his life trying to capture that figure, and in the end, it captured him. Thank you for watching. What do you see in this demon? A fallen angel? A tortured soul? A self-portrait of the artist? Leave your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.